to go down there and hear the national anthem from Billy Thorpe.
Australia, oh let's rejoice, for we are young and free, with golden soil and hard-fought toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds with nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair.
Yes, Billy belts it out, leather jacket and all, very much fitting the occasion here at Mount Panorama. And I'm sure Billy, like everyone else here, has a few butterflies leading up to this event.
Oh, you couldn't help it, could you, Bill? Phenomenal crowd piled in here. The tension has been building minute by minute. It's a 2.5-hour countdown. I remember that just seems like only 2 minutes ago.
That's always the way. It's a very, very short time from the time we went to air at 7 a.m. and already at that stage the crowd was massive. They were pouring in here from daybreak and probably earlier, but of course it was too dark to see then.
There's that great scene on Pitt Straight. This massive field of V8s. Mark Scaife and Peter Brock sitting on the prime pole position, 0.5. The last time we'll see 0.5 in action. Federation of Australian Motorsport will retire that number at the end of the year, and so they should. It's synonymous with Brock, the 0.5 number. It's the last time we'll see it in competition.
And by comparison, 17 drivers are tackling this event for the very first time, including 3 all-rookie teams. They are Gober and Williams, Hislop and Briggs, Hart and Lawrence, and another rookie who will draw enormous attention this weekend, and I guess a lot of pressure too, because he's in a very fast and competitive car, and that's Scott Pruitt of IndyCar fame. And as you mentioned earlier, Mark, he's been putting in some very good times, but still not quite on the pace, so that'll be very interesting to watch.
Well, he's almost there. I was talking to Alan Jones yesterday. It is a huge ask. I mean, this guy's got an enormous amount of experience and skill, but you're talking about switching from a left-hand drive car to a right-hand drive car. You're going from a left-hand gear change, a right-hand gear change to a left-hand gear change. It's a real swap around, but he's got down to the 2-minute 15-second bracket yesterday, so he's just about there.
Well, that was the really encouraging thing, because we were talking with Alan Jones yesterday, and well, he wasn't overly concerned, but he said it'd be really nice if Scott could drop maybe 3 seconds off his time, and towards the end of the day he did just that.
Yeah, I tell you what, it was really a shame that he didn't get a drive in the production car race.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Final word from Martin Jolly, almost set for the Primus 1000 Classic of 1997. A bumper field, -1, as you can see there. The gap on the grid is a memory now for Jason Bargwanna and Mark Noske, whose car was irreparably damaged in the warm-up to this race. Such a shame to see 2 great talents, young talents, missing out on the start.
It really was. He came off the track at quite a speed, hit that concrete wall very hard, but as John Smale said earlier, for a guy to admit that it was purely human error, he didn't blame the car, didn't blame the crew, as some racing drivers may be tempted to do. He just said, well, it's driver error, I'm sorry. and let's hope he can come back next year.
The 41 cars head off, well, 40 now, head off on their warm-up lap. We are just this warm-up lap away from the start. They are trying to get as much heat into the tyres as possible. And isn't that a terrific sight? All of them coming up Mountain Straight. Fantastic. Let's take a look at the grid now as they climb Mountain Straight. Once again, the Shell Helix grid from pole position. Peter Brock and Mark Scape in the Mobile HRT Commodore. Glenn Seaton and David Parsons, they share the first row.
Out of the second row, Greg Murphy and Craig Lowndes in the second Holden Racing Team Commodore. Larry Perkins and Russell Engel alongside him.
Go back to row 3. You can cancel that name. Bargwanna and Noski, they're gone. But Alan Jones and Scott Pruitt will still start from 6.
Out of row 4, Dick Johnson and John Bowell in the Shell Helix Ford, John Faulkner and Wyn Percy in the Fisher and Paykel Commodore.
We go back to row 5. It's Steve Johnson and Craig Baird, Wayne Gardner and Neil Crompton in 10.
Row 6, Stephen Richards and Jim Richards, the father and son combination, the Valvoline Commodore, Mark Larkham and Andrew Madecki in the Mitre 10 Ford.
Row 7, position 13, John Trimble, Thomas Mazira. 14 is Greg Crick, Peter Fitzgerald.
Out of row 8, position 15, Darren Hossack and Steve Ellery in the Gibson Motorsport Commodore. Peter Bradbury, Anthony Tratt and Paul Stokel will start the second Wayne Gardner racing car.
Row 9, Terry Finnegan, Terry Shield, Trevor Ashby and Steve Reed out of position 18.
Out of row 10, Mark Poole and Tony Scott, Paul Romano and Alan Grice line up alongside them.
We keep it going. Position 21, John Cotter, Peter Dillman, the first of the privateers, Ryan McLeod and Darren Payton.
Row 12, Bob Pearson, Alan McCarthy in the Product Commodore, Kevin Heffernan and Danny Osborne in position 24.
Row 13, Chris Merton and Charlie Cox, one of the rookies, Ray Hislop and Tim Briggs.
Row 14, Mal Rose and Kevin Burton in the Fairfax Commodore, Mike Conway and Gavin Monahan in the Falcon.
Row 15, position 29, we're almost there, Kevin Waldock, John Smith, Neil Shempry and Ian Love.
Row 16, Bruce Williams and Paul Gover in the Simcoe Pacific Commodore, Gary Wilmington and Bill Siders in the Commodore.
Position 33, Malcolm Stenick and Peter Gazzard. Position 34, Wayne Russell and Rick Shaw.
Row 18, Peter O'Brien, Ron Barnacle and Brian Callahan line up. Ian Palmer and John English in the Palmer Promotions Commodore out of 36.
37, it's Brian Walden, Steve Williams. 38, Scotty Taylor, a trio, Stephen Bell and Bill Attar.
Tony Longhurst and Charlie O'Brien, they had problems in qualifying. They're going to start way back, but watch them charge. Michael Hart and Peter Lawrence in the SMC Pneumatics car.
And off row 21, the Castrol Cougars of Melinda Price and Karen Brewer. They did have some misfortune, but we spoke with Melinda earlier on, or Barry Sheen spoke with her, and she seemed pretty positive, Baz.
Well, she did. You know, your heart goes out to her when you think about it. She's trying to do her best, and they're both really good little drivers, and it's just a shame, you know. It happens to everybody. You look at Bargwanna, you know, he's going sensationally well, and that's the luck of the draw. It's going to be interesting at the start of this race to see which tyres heats up the quickest. Traditionally, the Bridgestones are really good. You've got the first 3 guys on Bridgestones, and then you've got Larry Perkins on the Dunlop. So just keep your eyes open for Perkins, and you can get a good idea if Perkins is right up the front and catching quickly on the first lap, then the Dunlop's heating up quicker. If not, if he's going backwards, then obviously the Bridgestones are the hot tip at the start.
Big field of V8s. There's Glenn Seaton, the 1997 Shell Australian Touring Car Champion. He's won 2 Australian Touring Car Championships. This is the one he has failed to conquer. Mount Panorama Bathurst.
Sorry, Mark, I was going to say, if fairness comes into it, Mark, you'd have to say that this would have Seaton's name on it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's tried many times, come very, very close. 1995, he got within 9 laps of winning until he had engine failure. There's the man of the moment, Peter Brock, on windscreens O'Brien, onboard camera. Last time at Mount Panorama for Peter Brock, 9 times winner. He wants to go out with number 10.
Well, while they're nice and set off the front row, we've still got quite a few cars coming in. There they are, just coming around Murray's Corner. The Conway Monahan entry, Shembry and Luff, they're all lining up, and isn't it such a colourful grid? Just moments away from the start in the 1997 Primus 1000 Classic. 5 more cars to come up to the grid.
110% concentration on the face of Peter Brock. He looks across at Glenn Seaton. It's Holden and Ford on the front row for Australia's greatest motor race, the Primus 1000 Classic. We're only moments away. Tony Longhurst now taking up his grid position right back there. The Castrol Cougars Commodore, they had problems too. The green flag waves. We are only moments away. Hear the V8's roar in the Primus 1000 Classic from Mount Panorama Bathurst.
Set to go, green light, they're away. Brock gets away to a great start. Sideways. He gets away the best. It's going to be Brock. Perkins has got the outside run, but Peter Brock will take him through the first corner.
Perkins, great.
Side by side up Mountain Straight for the first of 161 times. This big field of V8 sort themselves out, but it's Peter Brock in 0.5 who'll lead this field up Holden Hill toward Repco Corner for the first time.
Cricket Fitzgerald got away quite nicely as well, but it's Brock Jones coming up the outside of Perkins as well. They hit Repco Corner. The big V8s, they climb the mountain. Let's hear them roar.
Toward GIO cutting, it's Peter Brock in charge, Larry Perkins in second, Alan Jones in the Komatsu Ford, and listen to the crowd greet this field as they thunder across the top of the mountain for the first time. Big cheer for the mountain man, Peter Brock in 0.5. This is where they want him. 161 laps, 0.5 leads them down through the cutting, down toward Forest Elbow for the first time. Larry Perkins in the Castrol Commodore locked in second. Alan Jones the first of the Fords. Then it's Glenn Seaton. Big field swings down Forest Elbow for the big run down Conrod Straight, reaching speeds in excess of 290 kilometres an hour.
What a determined start it was from Peter Brock in the 05 Mobile HRT Commodore. He sort of got pretty sideways off the start, but he was so determined to hit Hell Corner first.
Well, he did, but how about Jonesy? Really excellent start, and interesting to see the speed down the straight. There's not a lot to choose between any of them. Top four, almost the same.
Well, they all want to be sitting in that big draft at the start just to get their tyre temperatures up, get nicely settled. They don't want any mistakes like spins this early in the race. So all the field sort themselves out. Fabulous sight as they sweep through Caltex Chase and down toward Murray's Corner for the first time. And listen to the crowd roar. It's Peter Brock leading the Primus 1000 Classic as they cross the line for the first time.
Well, settle in and get nice and comfy. That's one down. We've got 160 to go here at Mount Panorama. Perkins got away to a terrific start as well from fourth, coming up into second. Jones from sixth to third. Seaton's gone backwards a little bit. There's John Faulkner, who started from eighth position.
2:15.70 for Brock. First lying lap. Larry Perkins in behind, Alan Jones, Glenn Seaton, and it's Greg Murphy in the second Holden Racing Team Commodore, John Bowe in the Shell Ford, Wayne Gardner, Steve Johnson, John Faulkner and Mark Larkham in the Mitre 10 Falcon in 10. Tony Longhurst is already on a charge. You saw him up the back of the grid. He's already up to 19th position.
20 positions he's made.
He's made up 20 positions in 6.2 kilometres. Tony Longhurst is on a charge.
You'd have to say that's a pretty determined effort. And look, Longhurst was saying all we need is a pace car, and I might just as well have been on pole position.
Well, Charlie O'Brien said earlier with John Smales, he said it's the best race car I have ever driven. And when Longhurst was interviewed about it, about the car having some mechanical problems, he said, I'm not perturbed, I'm not worried, we just got a little bit of extra work to do.
Yeah, but that's great, you know, for somebody to have that attitude. Normally you're already battled because your qualifying was ruined, but to go into the race with that sort of attitude, starting on the back of the grid, not worrying about it, that's good. So keep your eyes on Longhurst.
Down through the S's toward the dipper. The Levi's race score tells the story. Brock in command from Perkins, just opening up almost a second gap over the Castrol Commodore. Jones in third position, Seaton in fourth.
Gardner's done quite nicely to come on up into 7th position, considering he started back in 10th. There's Mark Larkham, who's made some ground. Stephen Richards, the cricket.
Gardner in the Coke Commodore in 7th. Steve Johnson in the second Shell 49th, and then Faulkner and Larkham.
It looks like, yes, I was just going to say, it looks like the Murph's getting a bit impatient in behind Seaton. He's just nipped up the inside there going into Repco.
Let's have a Longhurst update. He's up to 16th now, so he grabbed another 3 positions in that last lap.
Well, he said he was going to fly. He didn't look at all perturbed about that engine drama they had just before qualifying. He said, well, that's the way it goes in motor racing, but we've got a fabulous package. He was very, very confident he was going to get his way onto the back of this pack pretty early on.
So it's sort of zero to hero, as it goes, zero to hero.
Greg Murphy in the 15 Mobile HRT Commodore. He's starting to make up some ground on Alan Jones now in the Komatsu Pertec Falcon. He's slotted in nicely behind Larry Perkins. Not too much urgency at the moment. Just trying to get themselves into a nice groove, a nice pattern. The Armour All in-car camera riding with Murph right now. Riding across the top of the mountain through the S's. Heading down towards the Dipper.
Really got to give credit to George Smith and Dennis Watson from Dencar. They're the guys who build these Holden Racing Team chassis. After that very heavy shunt on Friday, the boys worked overnight to get this car back on track. And it looks like at the moment it's running perfectly. So full credit to the behind-the-scenes boys who really make this thing happen.
You can hear that squeaking of the brakes. There's nothing wrong. It just means that they're working.
Yeah, just drive you around the bend. 161 laps of that, so it doesn't do you a lot of good.
Well, that's usually an indication that the temperatures are pretty cold. Usually when those brakes are squealing, it shows the brake compound isn't up to its optimum temperature. And they really do squeal a fair bit when the conditions are cold. There's Greg Murphy.
It's strange to see Greg. That's not his normal helmet. It's just a plain white one. He hit his head so badly when he hit the wall coming out of Hell Corner that he had to borrow a crash helmet off of someone. So that's, if you're wondering why he hasn't got his normal sort of colourful job on, that's why.
It's not his usual Larry self, is it?
Yeah.
The crowd go up as Brock brings them over the line once again. They've come up pit straight. They hit something like 220 kilometres an hour up this short pit straight. Then hard on the brakes back down to second, and then crank it back up for the climb up Mountain Straight.
Well, a 2:12.49 for Peter Brock. That's a new lap record, a 2:12.49 on his third flying lap. So Peter Brock builds it. 2.6 seconds the gap now over Perkins in second position.
Oh, Jones.
Jones now on the attack. Just has to look up the inside. Not enough room on the inside there. Perkins goes very deep under brakes. And we're looking up the back of the Castrol Commodore.
That's an interesting pair of those two, Mark. If you see AJ is a hard man and Perkins is a hard man, to see those two together is going to be a lot of fun.
There's a real queue forming up behind the Castrol Holden here. 4, 5, 6, 7 cars. Brock's starting to open it up. A 2:12.49, new lap record on the third lap of the race. A 2:13.67 for Perkins. So Brock really has got the hammer down.
Longhurst up to 14. Meanwhile, Murphy continues to bridge that gap between himself and Alan Jones. Glenn Seaton just waiting back there behind Murphy as well. Across the top of the mountain. Perkins, the view from the back of his car, courtesy of Dunlop. Great camera shot.
Fantastic shot. You can see that big aerofoil on the back of the Commodore. Those high speeds, 250 kilometres an hour, is generating something in the region of 200 kilograms of downforce. And that's very important because these cars generate a lot of lift underneath the floor. And without these wings, they just virtually take off coming down Conrod Straight. So it plays a very important part in the safety of a V8 supercar.
You can just look very closely on the two white uprights at the bottom, just as it comes up from the boot there. There's adjustable points where you can sort of lift it up and drop it down to create more or less downforce. They have somewhere between 90 and 100% of creating downforce here because of the high speeds.
So hard under brakes for Caltex Chase. Let's look a bit of a move, a bit of a look up the inside by the Shelford. Yes, he's got him too. That'll be John Bow sneaking up on the inside of Glenn Seaton. So that moves Bow up to 5th position, Seaton back to 6th as they sort themselves positions in the early part of the race.
This is your top 10 at the moment. Brock, Perkins, Jones is getting nice and close. Gardner up the inside of Seaton. He's got there. Gardner in the Coca-Cola Donut King Commodore. Now Seaton comes back on the inside. Watch the Ford Credit Falcon. He won't have enough there though. So Gardner's on a move up. He gets up there into 6th.
I kind of get the idea with Seaton, the way he's driving at the moment. I don't think he must have some kind of problem, you know, because he was dropping back. You saw him glance down there, so we'll see if he's getting on the radio. It looks, I don't know, you can't tell, but I would say he might have some kind of problem.
XR Falcon onboard camera.
Murphy's got Jones.
Just snuck up the inside of Alan Jones in the Komatsu Ford, but just cut to that in-car shot. So position starting to change. The Murph's on a charge. He wants to get up there and chase Brock in 0.5. He's got Perkins in between him. That gap stabilised last time around 2.6 seconds, the gap between Peter Brock and Larry Perkins. Everyone dropping down into the 2-minute 13-second bracket now. Last time around, Brock just 300 to the second faster than the Castrol Commodore.
Well, the Holden race score, it's Brock and Scape who leads the way. Larry Perkins sits in 2nd. Jones in 3rd. Murphy's now up into 4th with John Bow sitting in 5th position. We have a look back, 6 through 10. It's Gardner, Seaton, Stephen Johnson, John Faulkner and Mark Lark Markham sitting there in 10th position.
In 11, Stephen Richards, Longhurst and O'Brien. Look at that, what a charge, up to 12th already. Crick and Fitzgerald in 13th, Finnegan and Shield in 14th, Hossack and Ellery in the Gibson car in 15th. Bradbury, Stokely and Stratton 16th, Cripple and Nazira 17th, Romano Grice 18th, Ashby Reed 19th, Paul and Scott 20th.
From the Whitman's Lightship, you're watching the 1997 Primus 1000 Classic. 6 laps down now, and can Peter make it a perfect day? We're saying goodbye to Brock on the mountain. There's a shot of the Whitman's Lightship, bringing us the pictures you saw just a moment ago. And this is the scene on the track. Brock leading the drive. Mark Scaife, of course, will jump in a little later on, ahead of Perkins. Greg Murphy has made a move. He's up to 3rd now. Down to number 5, Dick Johnson from the Gardner car, also on the charge. Glenn Seaton has dropped back to 7th place now after duelling with Brock at the very start of the race. And Stephen Johnson, a great drive from the younger Johnson, of course partnering Craig Baird. His father Dick is partnering John Bow in the other Shell Helix Falcon. And the leading privateer at this stage is car number 33, Alan McCarthy, in the Product Racing VS Commodore.
Well, I reckon Larry Perkins is pretty determined to try and spoil Brock's party early on. He's just undercut Brock's new lap record. Brock did it 2:12.49 on his 3rd lap. Now Perkins has come out and cut that down again at 12:3.3. So he's carved a 10th of a second off that new lap record Brock set just a few laps ago. So there's a real battle going at the front of this field.
Yeah, we hear news from the pits from John Smale. He's spoken to Seaton's crew. There's no problem at all with Seaton's car. He just reckons that he's settled into his pace and it's a long race, so the good news is no problems for Seaton.
27 positions made in 6 laps for Tony Longhurst in the Castrol Ford. He's up into 12th position now behind Stephen Richards in the Valvoline Cummins Commodore. Can you believe it? We got some onboard telemetry now on board the Shell Helix Falcon. Thanks to Primus. You've got your speed on the left, rev count on the right, and the brake right in the middle.
If the one on the right goes off the end and into the yard, then the scrutineers rush round and say your rev limiter's not right.
Let's have a listen to the Shell Ford as he hammers it around Mount Panorama. Fantastic sound there. Ford fuel-injected small block V8 producing about 600 brake horsepower. This really is a track custom made for an engine of that pedigree. You can hear beautiful sounds that came up Mountain Straight there.
Oh.
You'll hear plenty more of that during the race. They're already lapping some back markers. Yep.
Well, that's cost dearly. It cost Jonesy a lot of time there.
John Bow starting to come right up on Alan Jones now. The 2 Ford drivers, they work their way through Castrol Curve across the top of the mountain. Bow sitting in nicely. Gardner's done a great job early on in the race. We've only done 7 laps, but he's picked up 4 positions and is starting to put in some consistent lap times. He's in the 2:13s, and if he can remain there, he's looking good.
The battle, there's Murphy in 3rd position. This is the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th position we were just watching. Alan Jones, John Bow, Wayne Gardner, we're back on board with the Murph. Greg Murphy, young Kiwi, running in 3rd position at the moment. He's 1.6 seconds behind Peter Brock. You can just see the Holden Racing Team Commodore up the front on the Armour All onboard camera. That's Larry Perkins in the sandwich. Perkins has undercut Brock's lap record of 2:12.33 in the Castrol Commodore, and he's now 1.4 seconds behind 0.5.
Well, if he and Craig Lowndes can win today and have back-to-back Bathursts under their belt, they'll be the first combination to do that since Jim Richards and Mark Scaife back in 91 and 92. There's the windscreens O'Brien profile driving the Commodore VS, the 96 Bathurst and Sandown winner. First in the New Zealand Gold Star Championship in 95, second in the Australian Gold Star Championship in 94. So he's got a pretty good open wheeler background. He's very good in the tin tops as well.
Well, we had a wretched season in the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship this year. There was never any doubt about the young Kiwi's speed, but he only ended up 4th in the championship. 6 race wins, 3 round wins, 4 pole positions. He certainly had plenty of pace, but some remarkably surprising reliability problems with the 1.5 car in the opening rounds really did cost him the championship. So looking for a strong, reliable run here, just as they had at Sandown in the Tickford 500 just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. If you look at Larry Perkins now, he's just over a second behind Brocky, so he's pulling him in, and his last lap was 10th of a second quicker.
Yeah, Brock's just done a 2:13.21, Perkins a 2:12.85, so he's nipping away at that lead all the time.
Top privateer at the moment, it's still Alan McCarthy, teamed up with Bob Pearson in the Product Commodore. So McCarthy doing a good job. There's Longhurst putting the challenge on the Minor 10 Falcon driver of Mark Larkham. Both the Queenslanders, both from the Gold Coast, in fact. As they start their climb across the top, Longhurst has done so well to weave his way through 27 cars. In fact, make that 28 because he's into 11th position now.
Last time through, Larkham did a 2:15.6, Longhurst at 2:13.9. He's up the inside. Not enough room down there. He backs off, fortunately. Larkham's not going to let him through without a fight. They're fighting for position in the Primus 1000 Classic. We go on board with Tony Longhurst in the Castrol Ford. You see Larkham brushing the brakes there as they come through the dipper. Maximum acceleration as they thunder down toward Forest Elbow. Very critical to get the car beautifully set up through this corner, because if you get a nice clean exit on full throttle, it really does determine your terminal speed on Conrod Straight. Out of there, shifting up through the gears, 4th, 5th, 6th. Building up to 290 kilometres an hour. Longhurst will try and pick up the draft. There's the onboard telemetry, courtesy of Primus, as he gets in the draft behind the Mitre 1040. He's going to have a look down the inside. Not quite close enough, is he? They will go side by side. Down into the chase. He's in front of Larkham. He moves up another position. Longhurst moves into the top 10.
From 39th to 10th, Stephen Richards has come right up on Larkham as well in that little encounter. So here come the 3. This is 10th, 11th and 12th. Longhurst in the Castrol Falcon comes through Murray's. Then we've got Larkham, then Stephen Richards in the Valvoline Cummins Commodore.
So the order at the moment: Brock from Perkins, Murphy in 3rd, Alan Jones in 4th, Bow, Gardner, Seaton, Johnson, Faulkner and Tony Longhurst now up to 10th.
Larry Perkins is reeling Brock in something fierce. It was out at 1.04 seconds on the last lap. Now it's down to half a second and Larry is right on him.
So the team order's been sent out from Jeff Gretsch for the Holden Racing Team cars to put their headlights on as they start to lap the slower traffic. That's much easier for the slower cars to see the car approaching. It catches their attention in the rearview mirror and reduces the chance of not seeing them as they try and sweep past.
Levi's race score giving you the updated positions there. Let's focus on this though. Brock's had a pretty cruisy up until now for the first 9 laps, but Larry is starting to turn up the heat. No love lost between these two guys.
Former teammates back in the Holden dealer team days. They shared 3 fabulous victories at Bathurst, the Peter Perfect era they called it, 82, 83, 84. You couldn't touch Brock and Perkins back in those days, and now it's their opponents and give no quarter rivals. Coming down toward Forest Elbow, it's a 2-car war at the moment. We've got this on the replay, the Shell Helix replay. Kevin Heffen, the Queensland privateer, he's had a blowout on the right rear tyre and looks like he was able to make it all the way down to pit lane. Barry Sheen, you can never allow for that sort of thing in a race strategy.
Well, you can't. That's the whole point. You know, you can do the best laid plans of, well, Wilson, Perkins.
Here he comes.
Maybe. No, he's not close enough. I was going to say maybe up the inside.
Perkins sitting right in behind 05. The great shot from our cherry picker way above the course. We go on board. You're looking out of the rear bumper of 05. Looking back at Larry Perkins in the Castrol Commodore.
And one thing's for sure, Larry ain't no lamb when it comes to having a go.
Windscreens O'Brien on board camera. You're riding with 05. They come on the pit straight once again. Perkins closing the gap all the time. You don't need a stopwatch on this one. He's close enough to make a passing manoeuvre should Brock make the slightest mistake.
Greg Murphy with the quickest lap time that last one around. He's in the 2:12s, while the front 2 guys, Brock and Perkins, are in the 2:13 to 2:12.87 for Greg Murphy. He's tucking in behind Larry.
It's only 1.5 seconds covering the top 3. This is a great battle. Commodores 1, 2 and 3. The first of the Fords, Alan Jones just sitting in behind them. Some 2 seconds behind our race leader, Peter Brock.
Faulkner back there in 9th. Just ahead of Tony Longhurst. That's Longhurst's next driver on his agenda to get past. Fabulous effort. He's got past 29 other cars to be where he is. Brock's just turned the lights on. He knows that he's coming up on a slower driver up ahead. Wants to give him plenty of signal, and he's coming on through.
And that might give Perkins a bit of a chance, because by the time the slower guy gets to sort of sort himself out and get out of the way, Peter's thinking, oh, which side do I go? Oh, no, done the right thing.
Ryan Walden, Steve Williams, that's the slower car. Meanwhile, this is your race leader, Peter Brock, in the Mobile HRT 05 Commodore.
Well, we saw these guys running very strongly. There's Greg Murphy closing up on the back of Larry Perkins in second position. So they've got all angles covered on Network 10. It's a fascinating opening battle. Dunlop on-board camera looking out over the rear wing of the Castrol Commodore. Murphy just sitting in behind the draft. They just want to stay in this lead draft. Each car just getting towed along by the one in front. Peter Brock making all the room. Now Perkins has dropped back a little bit. Conrod straight this time around. Just giving himself a little bit of room. He was right up behind Perkins. Behind Brock, I should say.
Murphy through this. Just, oh no, I was thinking it looked like he was going a little bit quicker than he was. It's nice to see now, Mark, that Dunlops, you know, with all the problems they had with that earthquake in Kobe and that, have finally got their things sorted out. The Dunlops are really good tyres.
It really has been a 2-year fight back, hasn't it? From that disaster, they really didn't have much product the year after the earthquake. It took them most of 1996 to get back on the program. But the 97 product, cooperation between the Dunlop factory in Birmingham in the UK and at Japan, has really produced a great tyre. They've gone for a softer compound tyre. Today the Dunlop team's gambling on the fact it was only going to be 16 or 17 degrees, and that should put them in good stead. You can see Perkins doing very competitive lap times against the two Bridgestone shot Holden Racing Team cars.
Keep your eyes on the fourth place car, the Komatsu Pertec Falcon. Alan Jones is starting to reel the front three in. Murphy pulling out of the draft. He couldn't quite get there though. Your Holden race score. Brock still leads from Perkins, Murphy, Jones, and then we go back to John Bowe. 6 through 10. It's Gardner still sitting in 6th ahead of Steve Johnson, John Faulkner and Tony Longhurst. More after this break.
Welcome back as we watch the race for second in the Primus 1000 Classic at Mount Panorama. Perkins trying to hold out Greg Murphy. Bit of slow traffic there, getting in between the two Commodores. And that almost paid off for Larry Perkins, but Murphy not letting him get away. Let's run through the top 8 privateers at this point. Pearson and McCarthy. McCarthy in the seat is leading at this stage. You see the fastest qualifier of the privateers, Peter Dillman, is back in 3rd. Then we have the McLeod Pate car in 4th. Then Rose and Burton, Hislop and Briggs, Conway and Monaghan in the oldest car in the field, the old EA Falcon, with the 7th placing so far, and then Waldock and Smith rounding out the top 8 privateers, but up the front after 12 laps. It is Brock, Perkins and Murphy, and they've just ticked over number 13.
Well, we talk about that leading trio. Longhurst isn't stopping for anybody. He's in 9th position now. He's got ahead of John Faulkner and is behind Stephen Johnson.
Showing the speed differentiation between the level 1 guys and the level 2 guys. The level 2 privateers, of course, running on a control tyre. They don't have the level of expertise or testing or the intellectual property that the level 1 teams invest in their cars. There's no way they can match the speed of the level 1 cars. It's such a great initiative this year and a great incentive for the battlers to have this level 2 privateer class. So we'll be following that right throughout the day. Lap 14 of 161. It's early days yet. Almost half an hour into the Primus 1000 Classic for 1997, and this great battle continues between the 3 Commodores. Brock leading just over 0.8 of a second in front of Perkins and Murphy in 3rd.
5 times champ Larry Perkins chasing 9 times winner Peter Brock with just 1 Bathurst win, which is nothing to sneeze at when you look at people like Glenn Seaton, doesn't even have one yet. Greg Murphy sits in 3rd position, chasing his 2nd straight Bathurst win, teamed up with Craig Lowndes. Are an ideal match in terms of body size. Nothing needs to be changed as we go on board with Greg. Nothing needs to be changed in terms of seat position or anything. A similar size physically. When those driver changes, it has to happen so fast and smooth. They're an ideal team. The Armour All in-car camera for you down. Conrod straight, Perkins and the Castrol Commodore up ahead.
You're riding at 290k with the 25-year-old New Zealander Greg Murphy. 2-time Sandown 500 winner with Craig Lowndes. A very strong open-wheeler competitor back in his native New Zealand. won the New Zealand Grand Prix, second in the Australian Drivers' Championship back in 1994. He's also done some time at Le Mans driving a Porsche, second in class last year driving the German car. So he's a guy who's accumulating an enormous amount of experience for one so young. 25-year-old Greg Murphy won the race last year with Craig Lowndes. Now he's sitting in a very competitive position in third.
Well, they're coming up on the Castrol Cougars entry of Karen Brewer and Melinda Price. Karen has started the race and she moved over to the inside and let the guys come on through. Here's a replay of an earlier incident as we ride with Larry now as they climb the mountain. Coming down into Murray's corner, Monaghan and, no, it's in fact Poole. Mark Poole in the Gawler. Commodore just trying to come on the inside there of Thomas Mazira and a little bit of a spin.
Boys down at Murray's corner would have appreciated the burnout. Plenty of smoke from the back of their car as he gets back in the race. Fortunately, didn't touch the fence. We're back at the pointy end of the field, riding on Larry Perkins' Commodore. You're looking out the back window. Greg Murphy just sitting in behind the Castrol Commodore. Brock's just on a 2:13.9. Perkins and Murphy both. Well, Perkins just on a 2:14 neat and Murphy a 13.7. So times just within 2 or 3 tenths of each other. They're sitting in this trio formation. Peter Brock quite comfortable at the front of this race.
Further back in the field doing quite well, Stephen Ellery and Darren Hossack, the Wins Commodore combination. They're sitting in 13th position, so they've improved 2 spots from their qualifying position. 15th up to 13th. Ellery is behind the wheel, and of course he got a podium finish last year, finishing 3rd. The Castrol Ford with Tony Longhurst. They parted ways earlier this year. Ellery has spent most of the year out, sitting on the sideline, watching the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from home on the TV. It's good to be back. They did very well. They got a top 10 finish. They finished 8th, he and Darren Hossack at the Sandown 500. They're looking to improve on that here at Bathurst.
Yeah, while we've got time, I just want to say hello to 2 little children who are in hospital with cystic fibrosis that were coming here today but can't. It's Renee and Brock, and they're in Newcastle Hospital, the John Hunter Hospital. So wish you all the best and hope you're enjoying the race. Get better soon.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've heard of a number of proud parents of newborns in the last year who have named their kids Brock. It's quite phenomenal. So he's really had an effect on the Australian public. Down Murray's corner once again, braking for pit straight. There's Alan Jones in the Komatsu Ford. Wayne Gardner in the Coca-Cola Donut King Commodore brings it on to pit straight. This team's had a very satisfactory build-up to the race. They were very fast here in the Primus 1000 Media Day back in August, and very confident they'll have a strong race package.
Teamed up with last year's teammate for the last few years, Neil Crompton, who was recently returned from Columbus, Ohio in the USA, where he was racing in the North American Touring Car Championship. Did very well, got 3rd in his debut season, won more races than anybody else, and he missed a couple of rounds. So it was quite a good year, quite a good start for Neil's overseas driving.
Well, the top 6 cars in this race are setting a blistering pace. They're all operating the 2-minute 13-second bracket. Behind that, it's 2-minute 14, which many people thought would be the race pace this year, but they've gone up a peg. Just an indication of the level of competitiveness in V8 supercar racing in 1997. You really have to sprint 100% from lap 1 to lap 161.
Larry Perkins with the quickest time. In fact, Gardner with the quickest time last lap around. So he's starting to go very well. He's in the 13s, a 2:13.41. So Gardner going extremely well. We go back up the front of the pack. Here's Brock. He has led from start to now. We're on lap 15, lap 16.
Brock now braking hard for Forest Elbow. Larry Perkins, his constant shadow. He's been sitting in there in the Castrol Commodore, both doing lap times within a tenth, sometimes even 100th of each other. Very evenly matched.
You know, just now Larry's pulled away from Greg Murphy, so I don't know whether Larry's turned the heat up or Murph's turned it down.
Well, they're all operating in that 2-minute 13-second bracket, so very, very competitive in that leading trio. John Smales.
Greg Crick is in the pits from 12th position. He's blown the front right-hand tyre, the Dunlop on his car. The tyre's just come off the rear, the rim. You can see it just to the left of the car now. Crick in the car. 26 seconds and he stalls it all the way out of the pits. Goes at 29 seconds. Just have a look behind me, though. Here, just have a look here. This is the tyre, and that's what he drove down on.
So tyre troubles early in the race, that's what no team wants to know about. There's the tyre John Smales was talking about, absolutely shattered. that really can muck up your strategy. Here we go. More lap cars that the leaders have got to pick their way through. Brock with the lights on. Just cuts across in front of that slower competitor. Larry Perkins will go the other side. Greg Murphy just sitting back, watching brief in third.
Well, that's 2 tyres we've seen go now. The other one was with Kevin Heffernan. That was a red tyre right up on him.
He's getting pretty serious about this now, Perkins. He's right under the rear wing of 05. This is a great contest. I said before, these two former teammates in the Holden dealer team days, great competitors, enormously experienced. Windscreens O'Brien camera on the rear bumper of Peter Brock's 05 Commodore. As you ride with them, this 2-car war between the Castrol Commodore and the Mobile Machine.
Well, they're a very serious outfit, not only the Mobile HRT outfit, I'm talking about the Castrol Perkins outfit. And in fact, Castrol Motorsport Australia, they're very dedicated to V8 Supercar racing. Chronic Karch, the managing director, John Clark, the National Motorsport media guy. They're really revved up about Larry and Russell's chances here this weekend.
Look at that fantastic shot from the Channel 10 chopper. Some of the most evocative views you'll ever see of Mount Panorama. It really does show the serpentine shape of the road as it weaves down this mountain. Very, very steep descent, hard on the brakes through Forest Elbow onto Conrod Straight. Great stuff.
Coming down, they put the foot flat on down. Some 55 to 60% of one lap is spent with the throttle. Oh! That's John Bow.
John Bow, problems on the left front. It looks like some body damage there too. He's come into contact with either a car or the wall. They have been picking their way through the slower traffic. And maybe he's come to grief with one of the slower cars. The rear tyres rubbing too. Oh, what a tragedy for the Shell team.
That looks pretty terminal to me, because if you look at the near side front wheel, it's stopped. So I can't see there's any way he's going to make it back to the pits like that.
Now you can see what he's trying to do. I think John's done the right thing, getting off the racing line over near the grass there. He may even try and put that wheel in the grass to try and reduce the amount of damage it's going to cop from the hot mix. Let's have a look at this in the replay now.
Just gone
John
out.
Bow, he's going straight ahead. I think he's had a tyre blowout. It looked like the front tyre may have been flat as he was sliding off the road there. Once you lose the outside tyre on a corner, Baz, you just got no steering control.
Oh, there's absolutely no chance. And if you have a look at that thing, it looks as if it's knocked the suspension in and everything. If you it's
look
fire.
at the sparks. So he's right down on the metal now.
Sort of fire.
I think it might be sparks coming off the wheel, or it might have even gone right through to the brake disc. Now he might have been running it along on the brake rotor, so that's doing a lot of damage underneath the car.
Look at the angle of the front wheel. I would say that's the end of the day.
If that was a blown tyre, there's a bit of a strange coincidence there, because the previous 2 cars that have blown tyres have both been Dunlop runners.
Yeah, right.
So hope.
Look at that.
Oh, look, that's some serious damage. The Shell team under Les Laidlaw, tremendously experienced. They'll do everything they can to try and get this car back on the race, but the story will be told once they get into pit lane, get it up on the air jacks, get that wheel off. They'll be able to make a clearer assessment of the damage. What a shame.
That was a masterful effort from Bowie to get that thing back. Look at it squirreling around at the rear. Look. No!
He's barely keeping control of that car. It's very, very difficult. He's only steering it on that right front wheel. The rest of the chassis getting ground away on the bitumen. There's going to be some frantic scenes in pit lane as John Bow brings it in.
Well, it's such a shame he was sitting in 6th position. We go back up the front. The battle is on. Look at Larry. Here he comes. He gives Melrose a bit of a serve there as they come on down Conrod. He's right in behind Peter Brock now. Will he have a chance as they come through the Caltex chase? This is probably the closest Larry's been. We go on board with Peter Brock now. This is the Windscreens O'Brien camera at the back of Brock's car through the left-hander. Larry is right there.
It's the situation Larry Perkins will be absolutely relishing. He really has been a little bit miffed by all the attention Brock's got in his final year, and he really wants to spoil his party. 05 Perkins and now Greg Murphy moving right up into the battle as well. So the top 3 really bunching up as John Bow heads for pit lane. Well, that's a tragedy for the Shell team. Dick Johnson will be really distressed every time he comes here. This is the race that means the most to him, and they're putting it into the garage. Then there's some major surgery got to happen under the sheet metal. John Smales.
Bow has just come to the pits. The front left-hand side of the car is really badly damaged. They're getting a fire extinguisher into it now because there is leaking brake fluid, and there was a fire under the car for Bow. The car is right down on its left-hand side. You'd have to say it would take a miracle for this car to proceed in the event.
John, I'll be interested to find out from John John Bow whether the tyre went flat when he crashed. We couldn't quite see clearly because we were looking through the catch fencing at the top of the mountain, but it looked like that front left tyre went flat.
I'm taking a punt. It was the front, rather the left rear, because the left rear is totally destroyed. He's driven in on the rim on the left rear. Somehow or other, I think the left rear might have gone, which in turn dropped him down, and it caused the front left damage. It certainly looks that way from what we're seeing at the moment. I can't see this car proceeding. I'm heading towards Dick Johnson at the moment, just on the off chance he's prepared to talk to me. He's talking to Bow at the moment. Bow's explaining to the boss what's going on. Yeah.
I would say there's no chance whatsoever that thing could go on, because it's broken the suspension, the upright, everything. So that is...
And you can see from that shot on top of the mountain, he really did give the wall a whack when he came off. Dick Johnson trying to console his teammate John Bow. And, well, disappointment's obvious.
Jeff Moorhead from Dunlop is having a good look around the car as well, guys. So your concern about the tyres, I think, guys, is on.
Well, we'll get back to John when he can have a chat with Dick Johnson or John Bow and find out exactly what caused that accident. David Siegel, Shell Team's PR man there trying to get the answers. Alan Horsley, formerly the Mazda team manager, he's there too, back to camera. He's doing some tactics for the Shell Team this week. Man who masterminded a number of victories for Mazda in the 12-hour production car race here. And there'll be a long salary faces there.
Well, Perkins on Dunlops doesn't seem to be having much trouble at the moment.
No, he's really pushing Brock hard. Look at the way they're picking through that slower traffic. They really have to thread the needle now. There's cars all over the place. A big field of V8s, the biggest one they've ever had at Mount Panorama. And there's a lot of slower cars out there, so that's going to be a constant hazard as the day wears on. Perkins now has dropped back a little bit. Give a little breathing space. Brock still leading at 2:14.67. Perkins at 2:14.51. Those two locked together. But Murphy was the fastest man that time at 2:15.1.
Longhurst with the quickest lap at 2:13.98. He is really going well in 7th position now. 39th to 7th. John Smales.
And as John Bow pulls himself together, he's had a chat to the boss, Dick Johnson. Dick, what did he tell you?
Well, basically, he was just trying to go through that right-hander just before the dipper, and he turned the car in, and it just went straight ahead. So something's gone wrong there somewhere. We don't know exactly what yet, but we'll investigate and let you know.
Your punt, though, Dick, was it tyres or was it suspension?
Well, as I said, I really don't know, and I wouldn't like to say at this point until such times we have a good look.
At this moment, is there any possibility the car can get out again?
Well, you know yourself in this race, if you have any problems, like you're virtually out of it, but the boys will work and see if they can get it back going again, as long as we can be sure that when we go out it's going to be safe.
Pardon the question, how did you feel when you saw it?
Well, like you always feel, very disappointed, but, you know, I've still got a few years left.
Good on you, Dick.
Thanks.
Well, you can see from that shot, some sort of front-end failure. Dick Johnson not sure. John Bow not sure whether it was a tyre or suspension or steering. Something's gone wrong at the front end there, Barry Sheen.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I would say that wasn't a tyre. That was something mechanical, because there was no... At least with a tyre, you're turning the thing, you can see it turning. John Smales.
John Bow with me now. John, what happened?
Honestly, John, I don't know. The little right-hand curve before the dipper, I went to turn there and everything felt fine prior to that, and then it just went straight ahead. So there's obviously some sort of failure, but it would be a bit premature to say what it was. It had no steering, basically, so it hit the wall. You're only going slow there, but you don't realise how fast you're going till you hit something.
How hard was the thump, John?
Quite hard. I mean, when I had that crash at Phillip Island in 96, it hurt my neck and shoulder, and I had a crash at Indy last year and it repeated it, and I guess this will repeat it again, so it's obviously destined not to come good, is it?
The other thing was the drive back to the pits. It looks like you were really fighting it.
It was, yeah. It had obviously no front steering on the left side, and then halfway down the straight the rear tyre blew out because it must have been damaged when it hit the wall. So, but I wanted to get it back because firstly it's a long walk, and I wanted the guys to have a look at it to see what it was, you know, just in case there's a major problem somewhere.
JB, thank you.
Well, how fortunes can change. He had such a tremendous day yesterday afternoon in the GTP 3-hour where he won with Walden. Today it's totally changed. Here is the race score for you, with thanks to Holden. Brock still leads. Perkins in second. Murphy, Jones and Gardner, they're your top five.
6 through 10, Seaton and Parsons cruising along there. Longhurst and O'Brien, they're continuing their charge. 7th, Steve Johnson in 8th, Faulkner and Percy in 9th, and the 2 Richards in 10th position.
We go back 11 through 15. Larkham, Ellery, Finnegan, Mazira and Poole.
And the top 20, 16th, Romano and Grice, Ashby and Reid in 17th, Pearson and McCarthy in 18th, Smurden and Cox in 19th, 20th is Potter and Dillman. We'll be back in a moment.